Breanne. Thanks so much for doing this.
Oh, thank you for having me. It's awesome to be here.
So great, so great. Well, let's start at the very beginning. So why don't you just tell us a little bit about Orpyx?
Sure. So Orpyx was founded over 10 years ago now by myself and a group of co-founders. At the time, I was right in the thick of my clinical training. I was planning on becoming a surgeon. I'd done my MD. I started my residency in plastic and reconstructive surgery. And I just realized that there were areas within medicine that I thought we could improve the way that we care for patients. And one of those areas was the management of people living with diabetes, and specifically those people who are dealing with diabetic foot complications, which is one of the biggest problems related to diabetes. And what I was seeing in the clinical world was that we would be trying to provide people with advice when they would develop wounds on their feet, which is a very common complication, and it results from people who have diabetes not feeling their feet, which is a condition known as peripheral neuropathy. And if you can't feel your feet, and your feet are the part of the body that sees most of the force and trauma throughout the day, you don't have protective sensation to stop yourself from developing wounds, from those wounds becoming infected, from requiring amputation. And so it was very challenging because even no matter what advice we would provide, that protective sensation still was not there. And so people did not have the ability to actually protect themselves. So the thought that I had was, what if we could create a technology that actually would measure the feet the way that the nervous system typically does when you can feel your feet, and we could provide actionable feedback to people living with the disease so that they could prevent those complications from happening in the first place and extend their mobility and hopefully in some cases actually extend their lives by using a technology that would do this. So we created Orpyx to develop sensory insole solutions that would sit imperceptibly in the shoe and be able to do that measuring and monitoring day in, day out for those people who otherwise wouldn't have a tool to assist them with this. So ultimately, it really is about helping people with diabetes to live life to its fullest.
No kidding. I mean, you've already answered the question, why did you want to start the company? But what I'm really curious about is sort of, how did you find the confidence to go, okay, well, I'm doing my clinical practice, I'm doing this medical thing, and you know what, I'm just going to start a company. How did you get there?
That's a good question. I think a lot of it had to do with what I didn't know that I didn't know. Mm-hmm. So I was very focused on where this huge opportunity lay. And if you could execute on this vision, you could really change the way that people living with diabetes are cared for. And I think I was so focused on that. And then it was just sort of one foot in front of the other in terms of learning how to execute on that. And then in retrospect, you look back and you're like, whoa, there was a lot that I didn't know. And that probably helped with just having at least a level of confidence to say, I'm going to try.
Yeah.
So, it's interesting though, because what I thought I was getting into is completely different from what has actually unfolded, but it's been an amazing journey.
It sure has. Certainly an amazing one to watch for sure. So you had mentioned you've been in business for 10 years now, is that right?
Yeah.
Wow, that's incredible. A decade. Congratulations. It's amazing.
I know. Unreal.
How many employees do you have right now?
So we actually got Orpyx as a company, and then we recently spun out a separate entity called Kinetic Sciences to focus on athletic and performance applications of the technology. And so between those two companies, we have over 100 people involved now.
Wow, that's incredible. So, at Thinner Labs, we talk often about this idea of creating massive human impact. And you've spoken about this a little bit already, but what does this idea of creating impact really mean for you and your company?
I don't think it would be possible to do what we're doing without having that there. It's really challenging to build something from the ground up, and it's actually really easy to keep doing it, even though you have ups and downs of creating a startup and a scale up that you face every day. There's setbacks, there's wins, but it really is a challenging journey. And so having that potential of creating that level of impact in society is something that for me, and I know for the rest of the team, makes it really easy to say, okay, I'm just going to keep doing this. And I think when I think about what it is to live freely as a human, a lot of it comes down to being able to move freely in your environment. And for a lot of people living with diabetes, that becomes very challenging because of the complications that they develop in their feet. And that can lead to isolation, having to stay home, being in and out of the hospital for wound care, losing a leg, maybe even losing both legs, being put in a wheelchair. And so the possibility of actually helping to prevent that from happening in the first place, and keep people moving, living their lives, playing with their grandchildren, like that's what makes it really worth it.
Okay, this is all very exciting. So tell me, what is next for Orpyx? Where are you now and where are you going?
So the future of remote care is something that's going to continue to evolve. And we have the company where it's at today, where our focus has been really squarely on helping to manage diabetic foot complications in people living with diabetes. But if you look towards the future of remote care generally, it really has to be a situation where all of this remote care of diabetes complications, cardiovascular disease, respiratory disease, whatever one individual might be living with, that all has to happen in one place in a coordinated fashion, where you have coordination of where the patient actually sees the data, interacts with the data, how they interact with it, the remote care team that's involved with that patient, how that care gets coordinated with a primary care professional or other healthcare resources that a patient might be accessing. So it has to be streamlined and easy. And so the way that I see us evolving is really carving out our unique place within that broader landscape where everything has to speak to its each other, and where, as a society, we're moving towards a situation where we meet people where they are at in their homes as much as possible, and start to deinstitutionalize care. So not having it have to happen within the walls of an institution like a hospital or a clinic, and as much as possible having that care take place at home, and really it's streamlining the experience for the patients and also creating a more efficient system overall. So it's that's where we really have to continue to grow.
So exciting. I can't wait to watch and see it happen. Breanne, thank you so much for this.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. And thank you for all of your support.
Of course.